Have you got enough light here?
Yeah, maybe if we could go.
Yeah, we can go. Why don't we?
What are the main differences, if any, do you think, between what's funny now and, say, 35 years ago?
I don't think there is anything different, because things are funny or they're not, and things change. I think a certain amount of manufactured comedy is there, which has never been funny. And then people who... Funny, I was just talking about Gene Wilder being interviewed, and he said, if something is funny, you don't have to act funny, you play it straight. But it's funny because it is funny, And I, in my own personal taste, I think anything that's a human experience, human size, is funny. People fall over or the door, or the mistakes that happen in life. But I'm very, very fond of the artistry of the early silent movies, and I've been attending festivals in Britain where 1,700 people are watching Steamboat Bill Jr. with real live music on stage and laughing and roaring, uninhibited, a crowd laughing at pictures, and you don't get that, from the modern movie thing, and it's too business-like, if you like, and it's a bit too much like people farming for my taste. So I think, yes, I can understand why you asked the question, but I think human beings are naturally prone to sort of, coming up with humour as a defence mechanism for the awful things that do happen in life.
Right.
You go a bit more than that, you get pompous.
When you're around people who love your work, what do you notice that they have in common, if anything?
It's stupid. No, I don't know. I mean, I honestly, I try and reflect what amuses me. If it doesn't amuse me, I wouldn't do it. And I've never been one to sort of be in show business to sort of get a crowd or be a crowd pleaser or an attention seeker. I'm an art student, I'm an artist, I suppose. I look at things, I observe things, and if I see things, I want to say, see that? And I want to share it. And if it's funny, then we laugh at it. And if it's moving, or thoughtful, hopefully you think about it. I think you do that without any other kind of motivation other than that's what you're sort of born for.
But there are some artists who would hate to be stuck in a room with people who love their work. But I guess you're not one of them.
I'm not. I am naturally shy. I mean, I've thought about walking around the building until this is over.
Right.
It's very odd listening to people sort of saying, they wouldn't normally say things to my face, but they say it to the camera, and it's a bit embarrassing, but I love what they do, so I've done it back to them. So,
Is there an ethics to your humor? Is there stuff that is like you would find hilarious, but you won't do because you think it's too cruel?
Yeah. I think that I don't see why you should humiliate or shame anybody or degrade anybody. Because there's enough going on in the laws of nature that do that to people without people having to do it to each other. And I really, I really don't like some of the way that television shows, deal with, entertainment and talent and things like that. It's come from the UK, it's here, and it's horrible. I think it's absolutely demeaning to actually watch it, so I don't watch it.
Do you notice any difference in what you find funny as you age?
Well, I don't spend time analysing everything in that way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But recently I've noticed, as my grandchildren get bigger, they're vulgar. They're filthy little brats, in the nicest possible way. Because it's potty jokes. That's where potty jokes belong, because it's a big thing for them. They're 3, and it's sort of, or they say the poo smells. They giggle, and you can't help laughing with them, and then you sort of find yourself going, oh dear, and that's fine. But I wouldn't suggest that I do that in a concert, because oh, I don't know, it might work.
I America versus Australia versus the UK, what would you say would be the major differences in humour that you've noticed?
I don't know. One of the things I noticed when the Bonzos first went on the road up and down the UK, you could go 30 or 40 miles in any direction and get a different accent and palpably a different sense of humour. And it's sort of tribal in a way, But I suppose over the years, over the 60s, with television, that's what television has done. In Italy, they reckon it stopped all the local dialects, because Italy had very, very different dialects, and then television came up with Italy speak, and everyone started talking about the people on television. In the same way that Australian soaps, a lot of kids grow up today asking, I was going down the shopping mall, they're rising up at the end, and they'll just copy this thing. And so, the area of humour and everything is turned into a big. People who watch television are going to end up emulating television and copying, talking about that and what they think is funny on that. People who don't, I suggest that people who've got lives, have probably got a wider scale. And you can't, I don't think, generalise Australians, Americans, or British. I firmly believe in the individual. Is that you can't, if you do that, you're copying out.
But I can only see the British making jokes about Shakespeare and philosopher songs. Somehow that kind of more educated humour, that really smart humour, I think of as uniquely upper class British.
Chaplin was British.
Right, I'm saying that is that they make jokes about philosophers. Americans don't make jokes about philosophers.
Why not?
But because it's a different culture. I'm trying to understand why.
What about Emo? Emo Phillips is one of the most thoughtful comedians, and he does. His jokes are actually all possible. There's no fantasy in them at all. I said, talking about it the other. They said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, an example. I got in trouble on my date last night. I forgot to open the car door for her. Instead, I just swam for the surface. It's brilliant, So, you don't know, it's human scale. It's always there. Surprise. Comedy is a surprise.
So you don't think you're not an Anglo superior?
No, I'm certainly not. No. In fact, I'd say that the majority of television from the 70s and 80s was, higher quality than the British were putting out. Like Frasier and Cheers and things like that. That was really funny writing, and they did have, what a man. They did have, sort of genuine irony there, because that is what's getting, maybe irony is last week suddenly. But I think you need it there. I think you mustn't talk down to people. You've got to say, well, we're all in this together. The educated should be looking after the less educated. The carpenters should be making things for those who can't do things with their hands. We should all be, valuing each other as individuals equally. And those who sort of take themselves too seriously are making themselves, targets for jokes. Right. Because they're too pompous.
Right. There's a famous saying that satire is what closes on Friday night. Referring to plays particularly. So satire is really hard to succeed commercially. Why do you think, your form of satire has worked so well?
I don't know. I just think I don't call it anything. It's just like when you look at something and you find it funny or you find it thought-provoking. And if it goes with something, I find it like musical, I do that. I'm jack of all trades, master of none. I don't set myself up as sort of a big box office draw. I'm a little sketch artist. I think I'm doing this and that. I like it small. I like all the toys. I love to play with these things and dress up and muck about, and it's all good fun. And working with the Pythons was just like that. It was fantastic. They had a very good discipline. Not any old rubbish got through. They had to make each other laugh and used to fight. Almost physically sometimes about this and that, and argue. The Bonzos were the same. They used to argue. And when the argument stops, and people get lazy, then you should walk away from it. And